Greetings. As people are making their way into our webinar, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce the Every Learner Everywhere Expert Network powered by ISTE. Every Learner Everywhere recently launched the Expert Network powered by ISTE to offer professional learning and coaching for higher education faculty and leaders to support their students through and beyond the pandemic, including the transition to digital learning. We encourage you to visit the Expert Network website. We are posting the link in the chat for you to get more information and for you to schedule your complimentary session. So welcome to the Every Learner Everywhere Strategies for Success in Online Teaching and Learning Interactive Conference Series. It is a pleasure to have you with us today. My name is Norma Hollebeck, and I'm the manager for network programs and services with Every Learner Everywhere. Before I introduce our speaker, I'd like to take just a few minutes to tell you about Every Learner Everywhere and the mission of our network. Every Learner Everywhere is a collaboration of 12 higher education organizations with expertise in evaluating, implementing, scaling, and measuring the efficacy of digital learning and its integration into pedagogical practice. Every Learner Everywhere is one of 3 solution networks sponsored by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The other 2 networks focus on advising and developmental education. Here at Every Learner, we work with colleges and universities to build capacity among faculty and instructional support staff to improve student outcomes with digital learning. Our mission is to help institutions use new technology to innovate teaching and learning with the ultimate goal of increasing student success, especially for first-generation college students, poverty-impacted students, and students of color. A few quick housekeeping notes. We are recording today's presentation, which we will share after the webinar. And throughout the presentation, we welcome your questions in the Q&A section. If participants raise their hand during the presentation, we will not be able to unmute you. However, we will be monitoring the Q&A as well as the chat sections. As a biology professor and recovering associate dean, I'm excited about today's discussion, Success for All Teaching Strategies. Our speaker today is Dr. Niki Bray, Director of Academic Innovation and Student Success and Clinical Professor for the College of Health Sciences at the University of Memphis. A student-centered faculty member, Dr. Bray strives to use her knowledge and skills around learning and universal design for all learners to create learning environments where all students' individual needs are uniquely met. Passionate about students and determined to see every student succeed, Dr. Bray is equally passionate about sharing her knowledge with colleagues near and far, conducting workshops and giving talks on how to increase student engagement and improve learning through the use of simple technology tools and easy to implement active learning strategies, which can be used in every modality, online, face-to-face, and blended. A member of the School of Health Studies faculty since the fall of 2015, Dr. Bray has worked tirelessly to bring her 18 years of teaching experience in the local public school system to good use for her alma mater by redesigning existing courses and developing new courses to meet the current needs of the new traditional student using the latest technology tools appropriate to address workforce demands and social needs. As a first-generation student and a former member of the women's basketball team, Dr. Bray is sensitive to the needs of students who may lack the needed support and those with heavy external time demands. Additionally, Dr. Bray works closely with departments across campus whose focus is student support and success. In a continued effort to meet the growing needs of a diverse student population, Dr. Bray is constantly working on expanding the adaptive learning program and research within the School of Health Studies program. She also continues to expand the use of other innovative practices, such as the use of gamified learning and other active learning strategies across the courses in the School of Health Studies. Dr. Niki Bray's research interests include student success, faculty development, active learning, gamified learning, adaptive learning, technology-enhanced learning, universal design for learning, learning sciences, and student-centered learning. Dr. Bray, I am going to now hand it over to you.
Wow, Norma, thank you so much for that introduction. It's really, really hard to hear people say all those things about you, and that's very nice of you to give me such a welcome, warm welcome. So thanks to everybody today. I'm gonna go ahead here and get my screen shared. Want to make sure that everyone is able to see it. And let's see here. Okay, so today, thanks again to everyone for taking the time to be here on a Friday afternoon, on a beautiful April day. I hope it's beautiful where you are, and I hope everyone's semester is going well. I know we are quickly coming to a close here. It will not be long before our semesters will be over with, and we will be reflecting upon our semesters and thinking of ways to improve the work that we've been doing through a pandemic, right? And, how can we continue to grow upon all that we have learned through these challenging times? Success for all, this is the first time in a presentation I've ever put a hashtag on the title of a presentation, a workshop, a webinar, anything. And I thought that it was so appropriate because we're in the midst of a movement, whether we realize it or not. So I think success for all is really about a change in paradigm that education is currently undergoing, regardless if people want to be a part of the movement or not. We were sort of thrust into this movement, if you will, and we're all sort of being forced to meet these needs of students, whether we were prepared for or not. And really what we came to find out in the midst of this pandemic was just how woefully unprepared many of us were, not just as educators, but even our leaders and our institutions and the infrastructure. And when you really think about it, even from a K, whatever, 16, if you will, and beyond, our communities and our cities were not prepared and still are not prepared to handle our growing need to meet learners where they are and meet those needs on an individual basis. And we also know that, even if professors were equipped, right, with all the knowledge and skills needed, you and I know, all of us sitting here, that professors are not all created equal, right? My dean said this to me as I have gone through a lot of health issues and trying to find a quality doctor. He said, Niki, you can't, if you're at a doctor and you don't like what this doctor's saying, tell me, why isn't every teacher as dedicated and as committed? Don't they all have the same training as you? Don't they all have to go through the same accreditation and the licensing program as you? And I said, certainly they do. Well, he said, why don't they all have the same care and concern and commitment and dedication? And I said, I can't answer that. And he said, well, that's the same thing with the physician. If you are not getting the treatment that you need, you must continue to seek and be your own advocate, right? And that resonated with me on a deeper level. And I thought, wow, that's what students are going to do, right? Students are, especially from this pandemic, they're realizing they have choices, and that many undergraduate students who would never have taken an online class until they were literally thrust and forced into this situation, and faculty as well, would have never thought that their course was a course that could be taught in an online setting, have now been enlightened and can now see the possibilities. Now these students realize, wow, that class it's more flexible. I can take classes around my life and around my needs. And I try to say to my dean, if we do not continue to grow and make adjustments to meet the growing demands of our learners, we're going to be one of those universities that you see putting a for sale sign, because we're going to close our doors. So that that makes me as an educator push our faculty. Now I'm this big old long title, but essentially the director of academics. And my job is to try to inspire our faculty to change that paradigm, to see education differently than what we did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and to see what could be and what might be, and to be prepared for what could be and what might be. And and the reality is, when we think about students today and some of the progress that we see, students are really and truly showing up, cramming for lessons and exams and passing these using retrieval practice, but using it in all the wrong ways. And if we could flip the script and get students to use these learning sciences in all the right ways, we could really be sending students out into the workforce more prepared than ever, and really building a solid name for our academia programs, and only making things better if we can also broaden and open our minds and be willing to shift the way we see. And today, what I'm going to share with you is actually quite simple. So while we do have to be willing to see the greatness in technology, one thing about the pandemic is that it also showed us how much value there is in low tech as well as no tech, right? So today I want to talk to you about the 3 C's of success. And these first 2 that I'm going to address fall upon you and me as educators, as professors, and on our leaders, right? We are responsible for the culture, setting that ambiance, for the clarity in our courses, that design, the clarity, but then doing those 2 things allow that third piece, which is totally on the backs of students, which is to develop the competency. And so as you can see here, the mastery, which is the competency based, allows students to then take that knowledge and apply to novel, new problems, and essentially develop what the workforce is demanding, that students are able to think critically. And so this is the best of both worlds. And what I'm going to show you today is so simple to do. So I'm going to give you a really quick presentation. And if you have any questions, if you would, what I like to say to students, put it in a parking lot. So I bring a lot of K-12 instructional strategies with me. I did teach for 18 years in the high school setting. So I taught physical science, I taught biology, I taught honors biology, and then I also taught physical education. But I didn't just teach PE, I taught AP PE. So you had advanced placement physical education if you took my class. So it wasn't just come roll out the ball. We analyzed, we built websites, we really did things at a very high level. So, but that's not what I'm here to share with you today. So you should have a copy of this presentation. If not, I do know Norma is going to share with you, so you don't have to take a lot of notes. You'll see that what I'm going to share with you later, I share a lot with my students, like I'm going to share with you, so that when they're with me, they can be engaged with me, even though we're in a webinar, so you really don't have a lot of time now. But as soon as I wrap this up, I want you to dump your questions in the chat so that the ladies can ask your questions when you see me get into real examples I'm going to share with you from my class. These are just examples from my class. Just like anything else, there are lots of ways that you can do what I'm going to share with you today. These are just examples of how I've done them in my classroom. In another classroom, I might do them differently with different students, okay? So I'm not saying my way is the best way. I'm just sharing with you that this is what works in my setting in the University of Memphis, okay? So let's talk for just a minute about culture. And I want to give you just a few ideas. There's a lot more than this, but I just don't want to cause you to get into cognitive overload right off the bat, okay? One of the best things you can do to set the culture in your classroom is about a month, maybe 2 weeks before the semester begins. Send your students a welcome email. I'm going to give you an example of one of my welcome emails. They always change. I try to get better and better and better, but I send them a welcome email. I try not to give them too much information, but I do try to give them relevant information. I do teach 2 classes that have had high failure rates: Intro to Exercise Physiology and Intro to Kinesiology. In the past, prior to my teaching this class, they both have had Intro to Kinesiology had a 43% failure rate. Year 2, 50% failure rate. Okay, so it took many students 3 years to pass that course. Intro to XPhys, right at a 50% failure rate, year 1, and again, year 2. So it too had a very, very high failure rate. I took over the courses and restructured them with these very simple things I'm sharing with you today. 0 failure rate. I have literally had no more than 2 students total in both of these classes fail total since I've taken these classes over in 2000 and I want to say 16 or 17. Okay, the dates run together in my head. So send out that welcome email. Have a very conversational style. Be friendly. Share just enough, not too much. Take your time. Sometimes it takes me 2 days to write that email. I don't put their names. I type the email without names so I don't slip up and hit send accidentally. That's a good habit, by the way. I always put who it's going to at the very end. Work to get to know your students. So how do you do that? Send out a student information survey. Tell students it's optional. Make every question optional. Tell students you do not have to answer any question you are not comfortable sharing. But I am trying to get to know you. Send this out in advance, 2 weeks, a month. You know your schedule so that you have time to really read it so that you can know who you're going to be teaching in this class, especially when you have those really large classes. My XPhys class is typically between 120 to 140 students large. Be relatable, be yourself. Now, who I am now is not who I really am. This is my person when I say I'm on my job. When I'm in front of my students, I'm the person they need me to be. I have the energy, I bring it. But really and truly, the person I really am, I'm really kind of a recluse. I'm a geek, I'm a nerd. I love it. I love to read. I love to build learning. All right. So I'm not always this high energy, but my students go through a lot every day just to get to my class, even if it's online synchronously, online asynchronously, face-to-face. All my classes are hybrid. I don't do 2 to 3 days a week face-to-face. It's just too much for my population. So I have to be that person who lifts them. So I bring the energy, no matter how I feel. I do the job my students need me to do. So I'm relatable and I'm authentic. Yesterday, I had a young lady in my class. My students get unlimited quiz attempts. She sent me a text message. Yes, every student in my class has my cell phone. If you're not comfortable with that, I'm a very big proponent of that. You can have a Google number, okay? But I let my students know I care, and that's one way I do it. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just saying that's one way I do it. And she said, Dr. Bray, matter of fact, she called me Niki because I want to be relatable. I don't allow them to call me Dr. Bray. That's my personal choice because I don't want a title to make me feel distance from them. All right, I earned that title. I have my own belief about that, but to earn my paycheck, earn my respect, get opportunities. But for my students, I'm trying to move them. And I don't want my title to be a barrier. I'm trying to remove barriers. So she said, Niki, I'm stressed and I'm over here crying. I've taken the quiz 4 times and I can't pass. And I sent her an audio message. Kayla, you get to take your quiz, unlimited attempts in my class. And this quiz Every quiz is cumulative, and every quiz is getting just slightly more and more difficult. And if you are not, and I said this every single week, I have said this in my weekly videos, that if you are not paying attention, it's going to catch up with you. And now we're 3 weeks out to the end of the course. And now you're starting to struggle. And have you used my guides, my aids, my study aids? Have you asked me about a specific question? Do you need help with a specific topic that you're not understanding? I don't want to hear you tell me that you're struggling until you've taken this quiz at least 20 times. When you have taken my quiz 20 times, when you have dug and grinded and worked and given it your all, you can talk to me. But you can't talk to me 4 times, because life is not going to meet you halfway. You've got to go all the way to the goal that you want. You got to take it and you got to dig. So you got to be relatable. You got to reach students. You got to be authentic. You have to coach students. We have to stop pretending that that's not our job. We have to be what students need us to be. We have to create meaning in our course. We have to tell students why this course is important and how this course is going to help them reach the goals that they're trying to reach. How does this help them with their career goals? We also have to understand number 6. I was told this by one of my professors as a sophomore in college. Students do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's what you can begin to share with students when you send out that welcome email. Now, I walk through the halls in the university and I hear students, oh, you got to take Nico. My name's Nicole, N-I-C-C-O. You got to take this lady right here, Nico Bray, Dr. Bray. She's the bomb. Her class is hard, but you can control your grade. And she gives out her cell phone number. She really cares about her students. That's the way I hear students talk. And I just walk right on by them and keep on trucking. Students have to know you care. That matters. Sometimes for many students, we may be the only ones who care. The next C, clarity. Again, this is the second part that we are responsible for. Maximizing the use of the learning management system. And a lot of times that's not really our fault. But I want to say to you that the buck has to stop with us. I realized, because I serve on the committee that works with the learning management system, what's called the TLAC, Teaching and Learning Advisory Committee. I serve on that committee, thankfully so, because I don't know if I'd ever been known this, but now I'm telling you, so you can no longer use that excuse. Reach out to your IT and ask for information. There has to be a newsletter. Go to your IT's website, seek out the newsletter. There has to be information being shared on your campus about the updates to your learning management system. If you don't have that, go to YouTube, look up, reach out to someone at YouTube, get to the community page. Reach out to someone at your learning management system, reach out to them, go to YouTube, find the community page. I did not realize the amazing tools we were paying for with our learning management system that we were not even using, that came with our instance of D2L. Okay, and I'm going to show you some of those momentarily. Organize your content so that you don't have students going all over the place. Have it neatly organized. Keep content together. If you call it a week, if you call it a module, if you call it a unit, if you call it whatever you call it, whatever is a part of that week should all be housed together. Make sure students do not have to make more than 2 clicks to get to whatever it is they're trying to get to: a quiz, the assignment, the lesson, the exam, the video you want them to see. If students are having to make multiple clicks, you and me, we're setting them up for failure unknowingly. Okay, so I'm going to show you examples in just a second. The next C is competence. This is where now we've done our work. We did our work prior to the first day of class. Let me tell you why this is important. My fellow colleagues, my hardworking educators, you would not be here if you did not care deeply about the students that you teach. The way this changes your life is that now you get to be completely present with your students. And you get to cheer your students on, and you get to literally help your students at a moment's notice. My students all have my cell phone number, and they text me day or night, 24/7. You will not wake me up. This is me now, okay? I'm not telling you what to do. This is what works for me. When I go to sleep, the world could come to an end and I would never know it, okay? So I say, if you need me, text me. If I'm asleep, you will not wake me. If I'm awake, I will respond to you. I have responded to students at 1, 2, 3 in the morning. It blows their minds. I woke up this morning with this presentation on my mind because I want to make sure this is my chance to do more good for more students. This presentation means so much to me. So when I woke up at 2 a.m., I could not go back to sleep. What did I do? Run through this presentation again and again and again and again. So if a student would have texted me, and they have been known to do so, I would have responded. And boom, it would have been like, wow, Dr. Bray never sleeps. So when I have my course, I have set the ambiance. I have helped to do all I can to develop the culture. Now that does work. You have to work on that culture throughout the semester, but you set the ambiance before it begins. You set the ambiance too by the way in which you prepare the course. It's clear, it's concise. Everybody knows what to do, when to do, how to do. Now you're ready to help develop the competency in your students. You can monitor progress. You can step in when you need to. You can give encouraging individual feedback. When students don't perform well, you don't have to get upset. You can say, whoa, 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 wait a minute. Hang on just a second. I want to get on a call with you. When do you have time? Let's talk about this. Or you realize multiple students are having problems with the same concept. You actually have time to analyze that students are all having problems with the same concept. You can stop and make a short instructional video because the learning sciences will tell you that students will get to cognitive overload quick. And so now you are building better learning that meets today's learner, not what we were when we were in class 20 years ago. And the only thing I did when I left class was go to basketball practice and go to my dorm and study. I had no other responsibilities. I don't know what you had, but that's what I had. Now, basketball was huge. It did take a lot of my time, but I didn't have children. I didn't take care of my parents. I did not have to work a job, and I did not have any bills. Okay. Now let me go a little further with this competency. Retrieval, retrieval, retrieval. If we were sitting in a live space, I would ask everybody to repeat that with me. I'm telling you right now, I would not move forward with my presentation until you all did it with me. Retrieval, retrieval, retrieval. That is the key to competency. As Harry K. Wong, and I'm going to repeat that momentarily, would tell you, and I had the great fortune as a first-year teacher that he was a presenter in our new teacher orientation. He said, whoever is doing the work is doing the learning. So if you as a professor are standing up professing for 55, an hour and 25, or 3 hours in a lesson, you're doing all the work. So you are doing all of the learning, and your students is going in and very little is staying. So your work is in vain. Whoever's doing the work is doing the learning. Whoever is doing the work is doing the learning. So what we have to do is flip this and learn how to apply these sciences that we now know and really have known, but have not done a good job, especially in higher ed. And truth be told, K-12 does not do a good job either of teaching faculty of how to apply this into their classroom. So let's just talk briefly about retrieval practice. What is my time? Okay, I'm doing good. Retrieval practice, and I don't mean to read to you. I know you are all educated, but bear with me. One sentence, please. Retrieval practice is a strategy in which bringing information to mind, pulling it from my long-term memory back into my front of my mind or my short-term memory enhances and it boosts learning. Basically, it improves memory is what it's saying. Deliberately recalling information forces us to pull our knowledge out and examine what we know. You know how you go, wait a minute. I got that right there on the tip of my tongue. It's right here, it's right here, it's right here. You know it. Now, here's how you know if a student knows something. If you can give a student a tip and they can pull it up, they know it. If you give them a tip and they go, oh, they never, ever learned it. You know, if I say to you, tell me your favorite song. Oh, you remember that song? And if I give you the first couple of words of the song, or if I give you the music to the song, and right off you can start singing it, you know the words to that song. But if I give you the first couple of sentences to that song, or even the music, and you cannot sing it, you don't know it. You might know the chorus. You don't know the words to that song. Okay. If you'd like to learn more about that, please check out that source right there. Now, this is Mr. Harry K. Wong. He's now quite retired. I do own this book. I do encourage this book. It's really a K-12 book, but I will tell you, he's big on that there be rules and procedures, mainly procedures in the classroom, that there is a way for doing everything, that you don't have to address behavior. And we don't have to address behavior too often, but there's still behavior that that doesn't happen. For example, in an online class. For example, when we want you to participate and students just sit there and sit there and sit there. So there should be procedures taught about what you should do. So I still think that there's a place for this book, even in today's class, and even for those of us in higher ed. So I would like to encourage you to maybe check that book out, okay? All right, so the learning sciences. Excuse me. I've been dealing with a little bit of an ear infection, so apologize for that coughing. The learning sciences are powerful. And I'm going to share with you a couple of resources. Real quickly, if you have a piece of paper that you can jot this down, and I should have added this to my Google Drive, and I will add this to the Google Drive for you all. But the learningsciences.org and retrievalpractice.org are two fantastic websites that you can find a plethora of easy to understand information that you can use. Okay, here are some examples of how you can implement the learning sciences in your classroom every day. You all, this is so important. We have to stop lecturing and we have to start flipping the learning environment. What did you all learn in our class last week? Can someone raise their hand? Now I give them 2 seconds, and if not, I'm right into calling on people. And they know this. So if they know to go ahead and come ready, and I tell them, feel free, you know I'm going to ask you, feel free to already have it written down. So I say, all right, Norma, go ahead and let me know. What is one thing that you learned in our class last week that you did not know? So I come with my authoritative, confident voice, right? And if I'm going to call on a student that I know is less confident, I typically send him or her a message saying, today I'm calling on you, so be ready to let me know what you learned last week. I'm calling on you. You're number 2 on my list, setting my student up for success. Then I can do think, pair, share. So I pose a question up on the board and I say, stop real quick. You have 60 seconds and I want you, we're in my Zoom classes, and I say, I want you to stop and think really quickly about which of these 2 you think is the correct answer. and I want you to think about it for 60 seconds, pencils down, right? And then I say, I want you to pair up real quick, and I want you to turn to your neighbor, and I want the two of you, I put them in breakout rooms, and I'm like, and I want you to think about and share what the two of you think you're going to come back in. I'm going to randomly call on different people, and your partner thought was the best answer. And it sparks discussion, and it leads me through the content. Pop up when we are doing the gamified learning. If one student, or I may say if 3 students, if I have a class of 125, if I have a class of 140, if 3 or more students get a question incorrectly, I say, pop up. A student must pop up, either stand up, or if we're online, they literally just say, well, such and such cannot be the correct answer, Nikki, because according to page, and I let them use their textbook to cheat. According to page so-and-so, it says here, they can read it verbatim as they're building their confidence. But they know what you have to understand is they know that that book is relevant, because I don't ask them to purchase something that we do not use. So there's no purchasing this big $120 book and we use 60 pages. I have a $35 book and we use every page of that textbook. So I spend 3 months before I found the book that I wanted to use. So then if I ask them to do something, then we're going to utilize every single page and every single line of that in our course. Or I find online resources to supplement my course, and they don't purchase a book at all. So we pop up and they explain. So my students begin to really, before the semester is over, become confident, and they take over the course. And then what I like to say is, I'm going to jump down to number 9. Can someone add to what Jeremy just said? Oh, fantastic, Jeremy. Can someone add to what Cheryl just said? So if I know they're missing information, and I say, if I say that, we're still missing some critical piece of information, feel free. And students are digging. You can see them. Their cameras are on or not. I don't force them. And you can see them digging. And they know this class is about them. So they want to know. They want to get it right. So then back up to number 4, we do concept mapping. You're going to see that. I've shared videos from my class about that. We do unlimited quizzing. I wrote all the questions one semester. I just killed myself every day building question after question after question, because the book's questions are flawed. So I wrote all my own questions, 1,200 plus questions for one class, and I don't know, 1,100 and something for the other. So now I can do unlimited questions. So every quiz has 30 questions. 15 questions come from this week's quiz, and the other 15 come randomly pulled from the growing test bank. So it's constantly randomized. They never know. And I make all of the answer choices randomized all the time. Students never know what they're going to get. They love it. Have you ever thought to give a practice midterm exam? It's the same exam. 70 questions, 75 questions, 40 minutes. They got to know their stuff. I say to them, when you're ready, when you get 70 questions right out of the 75, start your actual exam. You get 1 attempt. You get unlimited attempts. It's scored, but it's not graded. You get no credit for it whatsoever. Don't come to me, because I do not curve. So don't come to me at the end of the semester and you have an 89.999999999. You got a B+. I'm not giving you not even a 1/10 of a point, because you could have done all you wanted in this class to get that 1/10 of a point. And I do the same thing on the final exam. Students know that it is totally in their control for the grade they want. The note-taking guides, I took the PowerPoints I had been using that I don't use PowerPoints anymore. I don't like them. My students hate them. It makes them cringe. We're totally away from those. They love what we do now. Then now I take diagrams that I know are important, and I say, can someone explain what's happening? And I put a box around it in this little part of the diagram. And then at first, nobody says anything. And I just sit there. And then I hum, la, 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 la. It's okay, y'all. Take your time. I'm okay. I'll wait on you. It's okay. And it's a safe place to fail. So you don't have to worry if you get it wrong. We're here to help you. And feel free to go to your textbook and feel free to read through. We have time. And they're just laughing and they think I'm crazy. And I am. I'm crazy about them. Right? So real quick, I just want to share, I do another big research, and I actually share this whole presentation, but I do another big 7 research-based strategies whole workshop. I'm sharing this presentation with you all, but these are the 7 research-based strategies that do improve learning. There's tons of research. Retrieval practice is one of my favorite. I do incorporate the other ones, and I talk about that, how I incorporate that into my course. That is not something that I'm going to do today, but it's a workshop that I'm happy to do another time. So real quick, before I jump into sharing, this QR code right here will take you directly to the document, but I've shared with Norma the link to it, and I think they may have it maybe in the chat. But if you want to reach out to me, there's my contact information. And before I jump in, and while I'm kind of getting resituated there, I'm happy to take any questions real quickly.
So Niki, we do have a question for you.
Okay.
From Luke. I think a culture of care can be set up without blurring the lines of our private life. Dr. Bray, what do you think of a no late penalty on all assignments paired with unlimited attempts on all assignments? Also, this is what I use. I don't have to be there outside of normal hours unless I decide it's a very particular situation, since there is always time to correct any problem they have late at no cost. P.S. Whoever is doing the work is doing the learning, yes.
Okay, so I'm different than a lot of people. Forgive me as I'm trying to now share a different part of my screen, so forgive me. I'm a little bit different in my belief system. I think this is the right one. I don't like firm due dates. And a lot of people disagree with me, and I'm perfectly, can you all see this screen here? This is my example of my welcome email. I'm just gonna share it real quick. Can you see that, Norma?
Yes.
Okay. I give soft due dates, and students they must have their first attempt by the soft due date, or they are potentially gonna get not a tongue lashing, but I'm gonna send an email and say, hey, you haven't done your quiz. Is everything okay? Is anything wrong? Can I help you? What's going on? Like, I'm concerned. And I do say it like that. Students usually thank me. Oh, I'm so sorry, Dr. Bray, things are going on, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, but please be responsible. If you get behind, please tell me, because I worry so much about you. Let me know. It's okay if you need an extension, just tell me. But really, it's just a soft due date. I tell them all my quizzes are open from day 1 of the course. They all close 11:59 p.m. university study night. So what can go wrong? A lot goes on in my students' lives, and I don't have the time to filter through and make judgments about everything. And honestly, I trust them. Are there probably a couple of students that take advantage of my trust? Sure. Do I worry about it? Not 1 second. I have too many students that I know are doing the right thing to let the 1 or 2, it's going to catch up with them. And I have 140, so I'm going to worry about moving those 138. Does that make sense? Moving that 138 on, helping them achieve their greatest ability. So I'm a little bit different in that. Some of my colleagues vehemently disagree with me on that, and I'm perfectly fine. It's just not also in my objectives that any of my objectives say learning to be on time. It's just not part of my objectives. So I also kind of feel like, where in my objectives does it talk about, that's my doctorate's in instructional design. So if there's a grade attached to it, I am of the mindset that if there's a grade attached to it, then it should be attached to an objective. Now, I have created a category in my gradebook called professionalism for that very matter. And I lump it all together and I make it worth 10% of their total grade. And it's kind of a holistic type thing on average, because I say to my colleagues, have you ever been late on a payment? Did you default on your light bill one time? Were you late one time, they shut your whole lights off? Like, it really doesn't happen that way in real life. Although if I wanted to apply for some type of a program there's a firm deadline, and I missed it, and I can't take advantage of it at this time, then, I miss out. But if we're really being honest, we know that doesn't happen that strenuously daily. That's just the way I feel. And I really respect when other people have differing opinions. So here is the welcome letter that I'm sharing with you. I just want you to pay attention, and this is not by any means perfect, but it gives you an idea of kind of how to get going. And I think I'm going to come in and annotate this just to kind of let you know like what it is I'm paying attention to. I'm very excited, right? There you go. I'm really setting the intention there to let students know, and looking forward to getting to know you better, right? Hey, I'm just going to be upfront. Students have struggled in this class, right? So I'm not pulling punches with students. I'm letting them know this class is tough, right? So please read this email carefully. Let me know if you have questions, right? But then I come back, I've designed this course with you in mind, right? So I'm really, really, really honest with my students. And then, I have this survey which is a copy of the real survey, but I'm going to share a real survey with you guys next. But if you all want one, you can click that, keep it, modify it, just make a copy. You can modify it. I'm going to show you the real one in just a second. And so I, let them know when class actually starts. I tell them they can get started ahead of time. They can start, doing their Kahoots, in the courses where we actually do play that. I go ahead and give them the syllabus in advance. I do tell them, pay careful attention to how you'll be graded. Do note that you will take a quiz after each class. And so I go over that carefully. We do have a group project. I let them go ahead and see. For you guys, I went ahead and gave you the actual document so you could see kind of, that's a big deal. Like, and just because I guess in K-12 we had to do all this stuff, a lot of people don't know how to do that. So I shared this whole project with you, which I'm going to share here as well. And I gave you a little extra resources down here. So here is the survey that I like to ask from students. I want to go up just a little bit. I scrolled down because I didn't want to share students' names. Okay, and so I asked them here, that's not important, like, did you transfer? But it helps me to get to know, like, what do they want to do upon graduation? This really lets me know, what's going on here, because we're the College of Health Sciences now. I need to update my bio, Norma, because we're no longer the School of Health Studies. We're now the College of Health Sciences. So we have a lot of people going into some form, of medical school or some type of K-12 education. But, it's interesting to see what students think about what they already know. They rank themselves to average and below, but then look what they expect to earn. Whole lot of these jokers want an A in this class, but they don't know a lot. Isn't that interesting, right? They all want A's and B's. Nobody thinks they're supposed to be average. And the word has gotten around in my class that they are in control of their grade if they are willing to put in the time, and they're willing to work. And it's nice to know if they are required, but look, this is a retake, so it's not from my class. So this student has not taken this class for some time. And then I like to find out, what do you hope to learn? It gives me some idea. What do they understand about the content to be learned in this class as it is? Look at the age range. Interesting, 19. I've got one here that's 19. I've got another one that's past 59. It's not applicable. And that's an interesting range that kind of gives me some idea. And I use a lot of technology in my class, so gives me an idea. And then, in what year did you initially enroll? 2018, and then I've got to change because, I need to give like my own choices for them to pick. This helps me a lot. How many hours a week do you work? Again, I need to give like a range and have them pick versus letting them type it in, because this data is almost not in a usable form for me. And this too helps me. Look how many of the students, 83 out of, I think there was 120 in this class. That's not a bad for even before the semester started. 83 students responded to this student information survey. They worked the second shift, so that's like 3 to 11, right? So almost 60% of the students taking my class work that shift. That's kind of good to know. So when are my students, going to have time to study? And this is also interesting. My children and mother, 4 total, 3 boys, a 7-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 9-month-old. Just my dog. Kind of interesting. I help with my 90-year-old mother, and my oldest sister, who has recently had 2 strokes. So, that gives me a frame of mind. And you know what it also does? It softens my heart, and it prepares me to be the kind of professor this group of students needs me to be. So that's just a quick example, but I really want to show you real quick. This is the Retrieval Practice website. Super, super amazing. And then let's jump into my course. Yes, I'm still here. Oh, please don't make me have to call. We have dual authentication. I don't know how many of you all have dual authentication. Okay, praise the Lord. All right, there we go. So let's start at the home page, and let's talk about the way in which the course is designed and maximizing the power of the LMS. All right, I just have a couple of minutes, so I think I can get this done, Norma. All right, I did not know we had activity feed where I could create a post, and this is like a 2-way messenger system. So if you don't want students to have your cell phone and students have the app to your LMS, hello, this is the way you can do this without giving out your cell phone number. It comes to your app just like a message would, as if students were texting you via, your text message. So you can respond right on the app, and it'll come right here for everybody to see. So it meets the needs of students who do not have room on their phone for the app and want to use the, log in, whatever. Utilize the news item area and be consistent in your communication. If you do have an app, be sure to share that information. Share other information about how to learn better. That lets students know as well how much you care. Also, put whatever information you email to students, also make sure that you try to post it on the home course. This is a different course. This is Kines. This is not the XPhys. I also learned that we have a part of our learning management system, a tasks, so students could type out what they need to do in this course, and when they're done, they can click on it, and they can go here and they can view what they've done, right? And if they want to see the details, they can click on it, and it'll show them any due dates, any notes they may have written. But then be sure that you set up everything on the calendar. All of your assignments and stuff, do use the calendar options. If you don't know how to do that, your university should be providing training on that, so that you can then come here and teach your students how to subscribe to the calendar. Y'all, these are super duper powerful tips and tricks for your students to be successful. All right, going to the content. When you go to your content, it's so important that you have your course organized. I organize mine by the same name as the textbook, since I am currently using a textbook in this course. okay? And a getting started module is critical. Okay, we've now shifted over to all HTML, so but that course is I'm revamping that whole course, so I don't want to show you that yet. But just notice that everything I give them the name of the module, the when it begins, all the way down to the time. There's no guessing. When it's due, down to the time, the Zoom link, the passcode. They don't have to go searching here, there, or anywhere. What is the focus? Why is this important for my students to know? What are the objectives? And they can go to the syllabus and find them word for word. So everything is aligned. Here are the 4 tasks that students need to do. What are we going to do next? Y'all, it is plain, it is simple, it is clear. Now, everything that they need above, read the course syllabus, bam, it's in that order. Take the pretest, bam, it's right next underneath it. And underneath here, I have taken the time to give additional information and directions to students. And look, I'm always saying thank you, please, and giving my name. I'm personalizing that, right? Okay. And then at this time, I was recording the Zooms in case students weren't able to meet so that they could come back and view that. All right. And then these tasks didn't require for them to have, excuse me, any additional links. And then as you can see, the next one, I did have conditions. So I did have to, explain to students that, and I actually sent them a video. But again, as you notice, this next module is set up the same way. But notice, now I'm starting to give students some support here, right? We're getting into content. And this is what I want to show you. This is a quiz. All right. And there's instructions here that explain it. I explain every single time the entire semester. All right. Another quiz, but this is the good stuff I want to show you. And Norma, I want to make sure I add this as one thing. I don't know how I left this off. So for my students, we started teaching them how to concept map. So I showed them when we get done, take away a little bit of information and test yourself. We call test A the easy test. So if you create these on like a PowerPoint slide, just take out a couple of the answers. There was the original one, and what's in green are your answers. Check yourself. Study what you don't know. Teach your students that. Don't study what you do know, only study what you don't know. So now we have, what do you think next? The next level of the quiz is one that's a little bit harder. So we just took out a little bit more of the content. I'm sharing this with you because this is a real simplified one. And yep, the correct answers have been highlighted for students in the green. This course is like a language course for most students. These are not exercise science majors. So this is like students learning a new language, okay? So we go slow in the beginning, and then we are able to pick up speed about week 3 because students have this down, and now I can really get the pace up. Same thing here. In class, I used this slide and I put the information in. They came into class the very next day. They walked in. This was a face-to-face, a hybrid class. So the next time they came, when they walked in, I handed them a black and white version of this, and I said, please fill this out. They had 2 minutes. 2 minutes. It was not a real quiz, but it was just a brain dump. 2 minutes later, I put the answers up, and they were able circle, highlight, whatever, put a star by anything you missed. That's what you need to go home and study tonight. Okay, any questions?
We have quite a few, but we're running out of time. So we'll
I
try to
told
figure out how
you.
we can get some answers to these folks. As we move forward maybe over the next week, we can get some answers to them. So
you can send them. I'll be happy to respond.
Okay. So if I can get my screen sharing back. Yeah, there we go. So I want to thank Dr. Bray for her time, her passion, her enthusiasm, her high energy. This was wonderful, and we would have done better if this was a 2-hour session. We will try to get some answers back to those of you who have questions, or maybe we can post the questions and she can throw them in that Google Doc, Google folder that she shared with you all. So I really do appreciate it. I do want to let you all know we're putting a link in the chat right now to a survey. If you don't have time to take the survey right now, we will be adding that link to the email as well. So you can take it at that time, but we would really encourage you to do it now while everything is fresh in your mind. Also coming this fall, Every Learner Everywhere will be presenting our virtual interactive conference series 2.0. We don't have a name for it yet, but it's going to be like this one. We'll make some rearrangement on it, but it's going to be synchronous and asynchronous events. We're going to have nationally renowned guests and digital learning topics for the future. So please stay tuned for more information if you're interested in something similar for the fall. Once again, I want to remind everybody to visit the Every Learner Everywhere website, our resources page, our expert network page. Thank you to Dr. Bray for, like I said, such high energy, such passion, such love for your students and caring for your students. We thank our audience for participating in today's presentation. We look forward to seeing you next week for our Ask an Expert Q&A, evidence-based teaching practices. And I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Thank you very much. See ya.